The pulse of the message reverberated across the void, and for a moment, the vast, pulsating alien fleet seemed to hesitate. Commander Holt's mind raced as he stared at the rift before him. He had no idea what was on the other side, but he knew one thing. Humanity had just been thrust into a battle far bigger than anything they could have imagined. The mysterious signal from the ancient race hinted at a force more powerful than even the dark matter fleet, the real power that had been dormant, hidden from the galaxy for eons. But Holt wasn't about to surrender. He glanced at his crew, humans just like him, people who had struggled and fought through countless trials to survive, to prove that they were more than just a fleeting species. They had made their mark on the galaxy, and they weren't going to lose it now. "Prepare for a counterstrike," he said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of determination. "We've faced the impossible before. We'll face it again." The rift continued to pulse ominously, but as Holt issued the orders, something incredible happened. Across the galaxy, a response came from Earth's allies, the remnants of the forces they had once thought defeated. Other civilizations, who had watched the human struggle with a mixture of disdain and pity, now began to rally together. The message from the ancient race had been received by them too, and they understood its true meaning. Humanity wasn't alone. They were not just a minor player in the cosmic game. They were the key to a much larger balance, and the galaxy needed them to rise. Holt felt a sense of unity surge through him. It wasn't just about Earth anymore. The entire galaxy had just been awakened to the threat that loomed over them, and together they would face it. The alien fleet began to advance, their ships gliding through the rift, their immense power enough to warp space itself. But the combined force of humanity's new allies was ready. Ships from every corner of the galaxy, once skeptical of humanity's abilities, now fought side by side with them. The gravitational fields humanity had unleashed began to reverberate across the stars, pushing back the dark fleet. For every ship the enemy sent, humanity and its newfound allies met it with fierce resolve, bending the fabric of space to their will. The battle raged for hours, a cataclysmic clash of technologies, but it was the human ingenuity that tipped the balance. They didn't have the raw power of the ancient aliens, but they had something the aliens never counted on: adaptability. Humanity was able to bend and twist the very weapons the aliens had once used, turning their gravitational pulses against them. Slowly, but surely, the enemy fleet began to break apart, their ships disintegrating under the weight of their own forces. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the rift began to close, the last remnants of the dark matter fleet vanishing into the folds of space. The galaxy was still, and the silence that followed felt like a fragile peace. But Commander Holt knew that the victory, while hard-won, wasn't the end. The ancient message was still echoing in his mind. Asterisk, you are not the only one who has awakened. Asterisk, humanity had uncovered a hidden power, and in doing so, had exposed a much larger, more dangerous game that was being played across the stars. As the crew celebrated their hard-fought triumph, Holt looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries, and humanity had just begun to understand its place within it. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together, fearless, determined, and ready for the next challenge. The universe had underestimated them once, but now the stakes had changed forever. And that, Holt realized, was their true strength, not the weapons they wielded or the victories they won, but the unbreakable spirit that made them human. The fight was far from over, but humanity was ready, for the galaxy had learned one vital truth: never again would they laugh at Earth's guns. The memory of the Galactic Council's mocking laughter still echoed in Commander Dylan Holt's ears as he paced the command deck of Earth's flagship. To the alien leaders, humanity's weapons had been a relic of a less civilized age, unworthy of serious consideration. But Holt had seen what they had become, what desperation and ingenuity had transformed them into. There was no time to dwell on their scorn. Across the stars, dark forces were shifting, and he could feel the tension tightening like a vice around his chest. As the ship glided through the void, Holt's thoughts turned to the early days of humanity's struggle. Earth had always been a small player on the galactic stage, considered too primitive to pose a real threat. For decades, their pleas for recognition, for a seat at the table, had been met with derision, but that was before they discovered the ancient ruins buried beneath the ice of Antarctica, ruins that had hinted at technologies far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Council had dismissed their discovery as another foolish endeavor, yet it was this forgotten knowledge that led to humanity's leap in understanding gravitational manipulation. By reverse engineering fragments of technology left behind by the ancient race, Earth's scientists had created weapons unlike anything seen before. They were crude, yes, rough approximations of a far greater power, but they were deadly. And now, they were the only hope humanity had against a universe that suddenly felt a lot more hostile. The soft hum of the ship's engines was interrupted by a crackle on the comms. "Commander Holt, incoming transmission from High Command. Priority level red. Patch it through," Holt replied, his voice steady but his heart pounding. The screen flickered, revealing the grim face of General Marta Reyes. Her eyes were lined with exhaustion, but there was a spark of determination there too. "Commander, we have a situation." "Another attack?" Holt asked, already bracing himself. "Worse." She leaned closer to the camera. "The Council has issued a galaxy-wide decree. They're calling us a threat to all known life. Every allied faction they control is mobilizing against us." Holt clenched his fists. This was exactly what he had feared. The Council wasn't just dismissing humanity, they were actively moving to eliminate it. "How long do we have?" "Not long. Their fleets are already en route. But there's more." She paused, as if weighing her words. "Our scientists believe the Council's response isn't just about our weapons. They think we may have triggered something tied to the ruins." Holt's pulse quickened. He had heard the whispers, the rumors of an ancient power hidden beneath Earth's surface, dormant for eons. "Are you saying they're afraid of what we might find?" "Exactly," Reyes replied. "And if they're this scared, it means whatever we've tapped into could be the key to surviving what's coming." There was a heavy silence as Holt absorbed her words. He knew what it meant, to keep fighting, to unlock whatever secrets lay within the ruins before the Council's forces arrived. But there was no guarantee it would work. The ancient race had left behind nothing but fragments, echoes of their once mighty power. Could humanity truly harness what even the Council feared? A sudden alarm blared, and the crew sprang into action. One of the junior officers called out, "Commander, multiple energy signatures detected." "It's them." "The Council's first wave." Holt's jaw tightened. The battle was coming, faster than he had hoped. He nodded to his crew, each one of them steeling themselves for what lay ahead. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Activate the graviton fields." The flagship shuddered as it powered up, the air crackling with raw energy. Around them, smaller human ships moved into formation, each one a symbol of Earth's resilience and determination. The Council's fleet appeared on the horizon, sleek, massive ships bristling with technology far beyond Earth's grasp. This was a fight they were not meant to win, but surrender was not an option. As the two forces prepared to clash, Holt couldn't shake the feeling that something else was watching, an unseen force, lurking just beyond the veil of space. Whatever lay at the heart of the ancient ruins, it was waking. The Council's fear wasn't misplaced, and in that moment, Holt understood that the battle wasn't just for Earth's survival, but for control of whatever ancient power they had inadvertently unleashed. He took a deep breath, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "All ships, hold your positions. We make our stand here." The stars around them shimmered, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to slow. The fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would be decided in the moments to come. The space between the opposing fleets was thick with anticipation, a tension that seemed to vibrate through every console, every bolt in the flagship's hull. Commander Holt gripped the edge of his station, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the battlefield. The Council's warships, glimmering with energy and shimmering metallic alloys, loomed closer. They were vast and elegant, a stark contrast to humanity's cobbled-together fleet of iron and grit. But Holt knew that beneath the Council's polished exterior lay a ruthless intent, to crush, to dominate, and to erase any trace of Earth's defiance. "Commander, they're moving into attack formation." shouted one of the bridge officers. The display flickered, showing the enemy fleet splitting into precise squadrons, their weapons already charging. "Hold steady," Holt commanded, his voice carrying the resolve of someone with nothing left to lose. The graviton fields around Earth's ships began to hum, glowing faintly as they prepared to unleash their unpredictable power. The crew knew what was at stake. They had trained for this, sacrificed for this, and now, as the full force of the Council bore down upon them, there was no turning back. The first salvo came without warning, searing beams of energy slicing through the darkness, converging on the human fleet. Holt braced himself as the flagship's shields flared under the assault, bathing the bridge in blinding light. Alarms blared and sparks rained down from overloaded circuits. Across the comms, frantic voices called out status reports, some cut short too suddenly. The Council wasn't holding back. This was an execution. "Return fire," Holt ordered. The graviton weapons responded, unleashing powerful pulses that distorted the very fabric of space. The Council ships were fast, their technology decades ahead, but they had never faced weapons like these. One pulse struck a cruiser, its hull crumpling inward as gravity folded it like paper. Another shot ripped through an entire squadron, sending debris spiraling away. But for every Council ship destroyed, more filled the void. It was like fighting a tidal wave with a sword, and the realization struck Holt harder than any blow. This was a battle of attrition they could not win. Humanity's only hope lay in unlocking the full potential of the ancient technology buried beneath the Antarctic ice. Yet they were running out of time. "Commander, incoming transmission from High Command," said Lieutenant Carter, his face pale. "It's General Reyes." The screen flickered again, showing the general's resolute expression. "Holt, the Council has deployed a superweapon. Our scouts report it can disrupt gravitational fields. If they bring it here, our weapons will be useless." Holt's blood ran cold. He had feared this moment, but hearing it confirmed made the threat all too real. "How long do we have?" "Minutes," Reyes said grimly. "You must buy us time. We're working on unlocking the final protocols and the ruins, but we need every second you can give us." The connection cut out, and Holt stared at the growing mass of Council ships. They were preparing for a final push, their weapons bristling with energy. If the superweapon arrived, humanity's last stand would be over before it began. But there was no room for despair. Not now. "Redirect all power to the graviton arrays," Holt commanded. "We're going to hit them harder than they ever thought possible." The ship's core rumbled as power surged. Across the fleet, human ships aligned, readying one final, desperate strike. As the Council closed in, the void between them shimmered with potential energy. A fragile moment, ready to shatter. Holt's voice cut through the chaos. "We may be outnumbered, but we are not outmatched. Fire at will." The graviton pulses erupted, warping space, tearing through enemy lines. For an instant, it seemed as if they might break through. But then, a shadow fell over the battlefield. A massive vessel, the Council's superweapon, emerging from hyperspace. Its arrival sent shockwaves rippling outward, distorting the battlefield. The Council's confidence surged. Holt could see it, the realization that they believed victory was inevitable. But deep within him, a spark of hope remained. If General Reyes and her team succeeded, they could turn the tide. All they needed was a little more time, a few more precious moments to change the fate of the galaxy. Holt tightened his grip. "Hold the line." The massive silhouette of the Council's superweapon hung in the void, an oppressive reminder of the power arrayed against humanity. Its arrival sent waves of despair rippling through the fleet. The vessel emitted pulses of energy that disrupted gravitational fields, destabilizing the very weapons Earth's forces relied on. Commander Holt watched as ships across their line shuddered and struggled to stay operational. Sparks danced along consoles, and warning klaxons blared incessantly. "Graviton fields are failing," shouted an engineer from behind him. The readouts on the main display showed their once potent weaponry flickering, weakened. The Council had come prepared, and it felt as if every advantage humanity had clawed together was slipping through their fingers. "Commander, what are your orders?" Lieutenant Carter's voice was tight with urgency, a mirror of what everyone felt. All eyes were on Holt, waiting for a plan, any glimmer of hope. Recalibrate the remaining fields. Focus on defensive maneuvers, Holt replied, his mind racing. Keep our lines together as long as possible. It was a stalling tactic at best, and he knew it. The superweapon was not just a machine. It was a declaration that the Council would stop at nothing to wipe humanity from existence. But even as Holt issued his commands, another warning flashed across the tactical screen. Commander, detecting a new energy signature. A technician called out. It's coming from beneath Antarctica. Holt's eyes widened. That was where the ancient ruins were located, where General Reyes and her team had been working desperately to decode the last of the dormant technology. The signal's sudden surge was unexpected, its intensity off the charts. Could it be a breakthrough, or something far worse? Open a channel to General Reyes, Holt ordered. Static hissed and crackled before the general's face appeared on the screen. She was bathed in a pale, unearthly light, her features tense with urgency. Holt, something's happening, she said. The ruins, they'd activated a failsafe. Whatever the ancient race hid here, it's waking up, and we have no idea what it will do. Before Holt could respond, the ground beneath the Antarctic base fractured. Energy shot skyward, a brilliant beam piercing the atmosphere and creating a ripple that was felt even in space. The Council's fleet paused, their attention drawn to the surge of power. Their superweapon faltered, momentarily destabilized by the unexpected pulse. It was a reprieve, but it also meant something far more dangerous had awakened. What's causing it? Holt demanded. We accessed what we thought was a control sequence, Reyes said, her voice taut with barely contained fear. But it's more than that. It's a failsafe to contain something. We may have just unleashed it. A cold dread settled over Holt. If the Council feared what lay beneath the ice, it was with good reason. The ground pulse intensified, sending shockwaves through the void. The energy warped space around it, and the gravitational anomalies began behaving unpredictably. Some Council ships were pulled apart, while others were flung away by the sheer force. Commander, we're detecting a massive object rising from Antarctica, another officer reported. On the display, a shape began to emerge, a titanic structure of alien design, black as midnight, brimming with energy. It pulsed rhythmically, as though alive. The superweapon's operators hesitated. For the first time, fear flickered across the faces of their enemies. Whatever had been buried on Earth wasn't just a weapon. It was something ancient and deeply tied to the galaxy's history. The Council's attention shifted. They had come to destroy humanity, but now they faced a threat they could neither predict nor control. Holt seized the moment. Redirect all ships. Target the Council's superweapon while they're distracted. If they could cripple it, there was a chance, however slim, to turn the tide. The fleet obeyed, rallying with what little strength they had left. Beams of light and graviton pulses converged on the massive Council ship, cracking its shields. Holt's heart pounded. This was their chance. But even as their weapons hit home, the ancient structure beneath Antarctica shifted, its energies coiling like a serpent ready to strike. Whatever they had unleashed, it wasn't done. And it wasn't friendly. Holt realized that humanity now stood between two unstoppable forces, the vengeful wrath of the Council and an ancient power that threatened to consume them all. The stakes had never been higher, and the path forward was uncertain. But one thing was clear. The true battle for survival was just beginning. The Council's superweapon shuddered under the relentless barrage from the human fleet. Sparks and smoke erupted from its surface as the once impenetrable shields fractured. Commander Holt could feel the momentum shifting. Every strike they landed was an act of defiance, a refusal to bow to overwhelming odds. Around him, the crew worked with a singular focus, their exhaustion forgotten in the heat of the moment. This was their last chance, and they were pouring everything they had into it. But even as hope surged, the titanic structure that had emerged from beneath Antarctica loomed larger in everyone's minds. Its dark surface pulsed with an ancient energy, and the air around it shimmered with heat and light. The ground teams, led by General Reyes, had pulled back, unable to contain the massive force that had awakened. Ray's voice crackled over the comms, her tone urgent. Holt, whatever this thing is, it's waking up fully. We're picking up gravitational anomalies. If it's not stopped, it could tear Earth apart. Holt's gaze flicked between the Council's crumbling superweapon and the ominous construct. Time was slipping through their fingers. Is there any way to shut it down? He asked, his voice hard but edged with desperation. Reyes hesitated. There might be, but it's risky. The failsafe is tied to a core deep within the structure. If we disrupt it, we might disable whatever's happening. But it's not stable. We could trigger something even worse. The Council ships, sensing the danger, shifted their attention. Some began to retreat while others focused their weapons on the ancient construct, as if they too understood the stakes. For a brief, fragile moment, it was no longer humans against the Council. It was everyone against the unpredictable force they had awakened. Reyes, do it, Holt said, his voice resolute. We'll buy you as much time as we can. The battle intensified, human ships clashing with remaining Council forces to hold the line. Explosions painted the darkness with flashes of red and gold. Meanwhile, Reyes' team descended into the heart of the structure, navigating corridors that twisted and changed with each step, as if alive. Time was running out, and Holt knew they were dancing on the edge of a knife. As Reyes reached the core, the ground trembled violently. Commander, we're in position, she said, her breath heavy. I'm going to attempt a shutdown. Before Holt could respond, the superweapon emitted a final pulse, scattering several human vessels and tearing a rift through space. The flagship rocked, alarms blaring. Holt steadied himself, eyes locked on the display. The pulse had momentarily destabilized the construct's energy field, revealing a glimpse of what lay within. A swirling, chaotic mass of raw power. And then it hit him. The failsafe wasn't just a defense mechanism. It was a containment unit for an entity, something far older than the Council or even the ancient race that had built it. A consciousness flickered at the edges of Holt's mind, vast and cold. It wasn't a weapon. It was a being. Reyes, it's alive, Holt shouted. Disabling the core might not stop it. It could free it. Reyes hesitated, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a grim determination, she said, "We have no choice." She activated the shutdown sequence, and the core pulsed, sending waves of energy that rippled outward. The construct's energy field collapsed inward, drawing in matter, light, and the Council's superweapon itself. The battlefield became a maelstrom, pulling everything toward the center. Holt's heart pounded as his ship's systems screamed warnings of imminent destruction. At the last moment, the entity's consciousness surged, a flash of malice, then silence. The energy imploded, then vanished, leaving behind a quiet, star-filled void. The Council's fleet, crippled and leaderless, began a chaotic retreat. On the bridge, breathless and battered, Holt watched as Earth's ships regrouped. They had survived, but he knew it had come at a cost far greater than they understood. The ancient entity was gone, or perhaps waiting. Humanity had won the battle, but the war for its place in the galaxy was far from over. "Commander, the Council is fleeing," Carter reported. Holt nodded, his gaze distant. "Let them go. We have other battles to fight." The crew exchanged weary glances, knowing that their victory was just the beginning of a far more dangerous journey. As the stars stretched endlessly ahead, Holt whispered to himself, "We'll be ready." In the aftermath of the battle, a heavy silence fell over Earth's fleet. The stars, once a silent backdrop to their struggle, now seemed to breathe easier without the oppressive glow of the Council's superweapon. Ships limped back into formation, some trailing sparks, others darkened and scared but miraculously intact. Commander Holt sat in his chair, exhaustion etched into every line on his face. The crew moved quietly around him, processing what they had survived and what they had lost. On a private channel, the voice of General Reyes came through. "We're out," she said, her tone wearier than he had ever heard. "My team made it back. The structure is inactive, at least for now." There was a pause, heavy with things left unsaid. "Whatever we unleashed, Holt, It chose not to finish us. Maybe it couldn't. Maybe it's waiting. Holt let her words settle, the weight of their shared understanding pressing down on him. The entity, whatever it was, had been ancient and powerful beyond comprehension. It had shown a glimmer of malice, but it had not destroyed them outright. It had been contained for a reason, and that reason would haunt their future. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," he said softly. "Right now, we need to rebuild." The days that followed were a blur of activity. Messages of relief and grief flooded in from Earth and across the colonies. Humanity had fought together and survived the brink of annihilation, but at a great cost. Entire fleets were decimated. Brave pilots and soldiers had given everything. Families mourned, leaders scrambled to make sense of the chaos, and people everywhere looked up at the stars with a mix of fear and awe. Holt spent hours in strategy meetings, planning the next steps. The council was fractured but not gone, and their threat would return in time. But for now, they had been driven back, and Earth had bought itself a fragile peace. The fleet would need rebuilding, and alliances with other resistant species would have to be formed. The galaxy had seen that humanity would not go quietly into oblivion. They had to make sure they were ready for whatever came next. One evening, Holt walked alone on the observation deck of the flagship. The stars stretched out before him, vast and cold, but they no longer felt quite so distant. Carter approached, his usually serious face softening with a smile. "Commander, some of the crew have set up a memorial. Thought you might want to say a few words." Holt nodded, his throat tight. Together, they walked to the gathering. Dozens of crew members stood beneath the flickering light of candles, each flame a memory, a life lost in the battle. Holt stepped forward, the words catching in his throat. "We survived because we refused to surrender," he began. "We fought together, blowed together, and endured more than we thought possible. And we will honor those who sacrificed everything by continuing to fight for a better future." He paused, searching for the right words. "We don't know what tomorrow will bring. We face threats we can't fully understand. But we do know this. Together we are strong. We are not defined by what the galaxy thinks of us. We are defined by what we choose to become." As the flames flickered, a quiet determination settled over those gathered. They had come through darkness and survived. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it as one. Holt stepped back, letting the moment wash over him. He felt the weight of the fight ahead, but also the glimmer of hope. The galaxy was vast and filled with danger, but humanity had carved its place among the stars. They would stand their ground, together. As he turned back to the stars, Holt whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." And somewhere deep in the darkness, perhaps the entity listened and waited. But for now, humanity had earned its fragile peace, and it would fight to keep it.